All right. So what I'm going to share today also is something very practical, not too much about technical things, but you will need this at different points. Okay. So we're primarily talking about the demos, and then this is what you should prepare for your final project presentation. And then before we go through the outline, okay, I just want to highlight, you guys already been doing a lot of demos and probably done different projects at different points. It's nothing really new, but now you're getting to senior, you graduate, you go to work. You want to make sure in the future, okay, so all the demos you do should be very professional, okay, because this is actually a pretty big deal in the whole software industry. Because if you actually think about all the big companies, every year they do all these conferences, big events. These are very, very serious events. And then these events normally related with their annual revenue, their annual push on some of the product and sales. Okay, they can't afford of having an unsuccessful demo or conference events. Okay, they takes half year, 1 year, sometime to prepare. I remember when I was at Amazon, we were preparing for this second version of the Kindle Fire tablet. I think the presentation preparation started probably half a year before the date. So all the teams start to get ready for their product, especially if your product will be demoed. And then, even though you saw a very short version at the end from the CEOs, at that time, Jeff Bezos was demoing the tablet, but all the people involved, they start preparing really early, just because this is very, very important. And also this has become a trend. Okay, so people are watching all of this, and even people from non-tech field, they pay a lot more attention. That's why this tech company now grows very well. That's also why, because they are, they need much more CS majors. Okay, so demo happens at different levels. All right. Also, if you one day have really chance to do and work on a real startup company, whether it's your own or you join some other team, and you need to do demo all the time. Okay. So for example, a lot of this startup accelerator programs, and the most famous one called YC, Y Combinator. That's where all this top startup come from originally. And then they actually, for example, if you got selected into the program, they give you 3 months, and then they want you to work on the project, and then give you mentorship, give you funding. After 3 months, they will host this very big demo day, and then they invite a lot of investors, industry partners, and then every team need to show a very serious demo. Hopefully, you can get some funding and interest from these investors. Okay, so that's how the demo day works. And you can just go to YouTube and search for demo day, especially YC demo days. You can find a lot of those examples. All right, so, but my point is that if you are trying to run a startup, you need to have a very good and solid skills to demo and presentation, because you have to pitch this all the time. And also, many cases in the early stage, you had to pitch this without much resources, without much, impressive data, such as sales, all of this. Okay, so convincing the audience, the investors, is actually very important. Also, as you start to run the startup, okay, again, you have all the different opportunities and chances to run the demos. You go to the shows, you go to the conferences. Sometimes you just talk to the customers in their offices, and you do that all the time. Okay, it is sometimes very exhausted, but it really trains the way you communicate. All right, you pitch and sales. In many cases, in the beginning, you don't feel very comfortable. I would say for most of the sales majors, but it's not really something difficult to get compared with writing code. I would say this is easier. It's more of a practice. Okay, the more you do, and the more the better you will get. Okay. All right. So again, this one, if you remember, I was sharing about the startup story in the early days we did, and we were basically after we get a prototype done within the 3 months, and the next half year we were just doing demos, sales. Every day was millions, and that was 2012. And then I remember at that time we were all doing online meetings. At that time there wasn't Zoom, I think, not Zoom, but we were using It's a go-to meeting. Not sure how many of you have seen that. That was popular before. But yeah, but same, the format all similar, just all same format today, share screen and give out the different demos. But that's a very important, okay, for both tech people and also the business people. All right. Now, if you see, I don't work on a startup. I don't worry too much about this. It's actually not correct, because if you actually work in the big companies, following the Scrum, agile development, a lot of the team days at the end of Scrum, they normally have a demo session internally. Okay. Every Scrum at the end, and because you guys work on a lot of tasks, so they want everyone to share a demo on what they have accomplished over the past 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on how long the sprint is. Okay, so that's actually very typical and helps the teammate to make sure everyone is on the same page, but also it's kind of a good way to show their work. Okay, so again, this is similar to the Scrum I talked about before. It's a kind of a moment that you do not want to mess up, because that shows your progress, your performance, and everything. Okay. Sometimes internally in the company, you also have opportunities to do demos for the whole company, sometimes the whole bigger team or bigger department. One of our students, Isaac, he works in Apple, and he emailed me a couple of days ago, and we're talking about something else, but he mentioned, oh, I just got a very good tool project finish, and I really bumped up some of the numbers they were working on. It was very successful, so he was demoing that to like 250 people within the company. He said he was a little bit nervous and stressful. So it's a very typical case. Okay, you do the internal presentations. I remember in Amazon, once you before you can be promoted to the third level of the engineer position, you enter as level 1, and there's a level 2, and then level 3 is pretty senior. You must finish a internal presentation within the team, within the company. That's a little bit more formal. So again, demoing presentation skill, very, very important. Okay, even working as a software engineer. I don't know how many of you are still very active in hackathons, and then you should actually try that. If you've never been to a hackathon, you definitely want to do that. Not sure, it is not as popular as 5-10 years ago, but still a very good thing to do. Okay, if you ever been to a hackathon, normally at the very end, okay, you have to meet the judges, show the project, you have to convince them within a very short period of time, and let them see what you have done. And in many cases, you don't have to do a lot of presentation, but the live demo, just with a laptop to show everything you have, that's very important. Okay, so this is the hack party back in 2015, I think, and they were doing that one in the very big classroom in the business school. Okay, but not sure we are still hosting. Are we still having this one? Did we have this one this past year? Anyone know it? All right. Yeah. Okay. So they used to do that in February, but anyway, so the pandemic is one thing, but I think hackathon overall, it's not, I would say it's not as popular as before. Part of the reason because there are too many. So anyway, just keep an eye on this, and sometimes there are good sponsors, good themes, and you might want to give it a try. Obviously, a very big challenge of this kind of events is that it's very hard to guarantee 100% fair. You're supposed to go there from scratch, but it's hard to say that. So, but it's not a big deal. You can also use that as the opportunity to really push yourself on some of the good projects, or at least to see some other good ideas. All right. But anyway, going to this kind of events also requires your skill to do the demos. All right. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you think about all the tech companies, their demos, presentation, the events, to some extent, I think they are much more popular than the traditional celebrities, concert, movies, all of this. Because the more people actually look at this, iPhone is going to announce another device. Google is going to get new services. Those it actually generating a lot bigger impact than the traditional entertainment field, which wasn't the case probably back 2 years ago, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, maybe when you heard, Microsoft get a new Windows, right? Probably not everyone will actually really care too much. But now, talking about new iPhone, new technology, and that's a quite different story. So anyway, so it's a good time for tech, okay? And in this period of time, and as a software engineer developer, you need to know how to sell yourself, sell your project, and doing really good and effective presentation demos. All right, so that's kind of a background. All right, so here's the outline. Okay, every team should be following, guys. I will put this slide online. You should follow this one, and then it's a very typical investor pitch type of outline. If you ever been to some kind of a demo day events, seen some of this startup program where they show their project, or if you ever watched a Shark Tank, right? So they kind of follow this outline, more or less. Okay, so these are the bullets I kind of seen very often. So you should use this one to come up with your investor pitch. Investor pitch means that you're talking to potentially investors, angel investors, VCs, or some bigger ones, and then to convince them that your project has a potential, so that they will put more money and then on your project to help you to scale and grow. Okay, so you should actually follow this kind of a sequence to talk about a project. I think this is the most reasonable way to talk about it. All right, so let's start from problem. Okay, starting your presentation with a very clear statement about what the problem is. You shouldn't talk anything about AI or algorithms or anything, okay? Because a lot of these investors and audience, they do not have much technical background. Always start from problem, convince people why you're making this, why this is useful, and something that people will need. Because if you don't have this one identified, then your product won't sell, no matter how good your technology is. Okay, now this is so important. I already spent a lecture in the early days this quarter semester to talk about this one when we talk about the problem finding and ideation. All right, and then when you show this final project, this is still a very, very important question to answer, and you do not want to escape this one, right? Just very clearly identify what the problem is. If you have a good story to share, go ahead with the story. People like stories. Okay, now this is an example I saw back in 2015, the hackathon I just showed you. I was remember this project because there were a group of students. They were making this Raspberry Pi project. They get this LED light board, and then they were making some good animations with the lights. And that's their project. They were demoing it, and they feel very happy about it. But the judges, not from me, I was one of the judges, but the other judges were very push and picky on this project. And then they keep asking, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Why are you making this? And then what is the purpose of the project? For me, I mean, this is a very, obviously, it's just a side project. They're trying to have fun and practice Raspberry Pi, learning something new. Obviously, this is not for business. But the other judge, they don't care. Because all they care, the very first question they're trying to answer is the problem. Okay, they treat every project very seriously. From the business point of view, they don't care about the technology. They want to make sure they understand your project right, see all the potentials. So my point is that whenever you have a chance to talk to the investors and business people, you should never underestimate the importance of this question. Okay, they will always try to figure out this question, 100% before you talk anything else. Okay, so convince people this is a real problem, and it's a problem that definitely was to be solved or improved. All right. After the problem, talk about solution. Now, you do not have to prepare a lot of slides to show the solution, talk about architecture, front and back, all of this. No, you go ahead to show the demo. All right. And then in general, if you can do a live demo, that's always much more fun and convincing than showing slides or videos, just like in the class, right? So if I do live coding, show you live things, click the server stuff, that seems to be more interesting, right? And at least it's real, it's interactive. But if I send you a video, I sent some of the videos to you guys. I don't know how many of you actually watch those. I don't expect you to watch that, very carefully. I mean, that's also expected. So because we all like to see real live and new things. Okay, we don't want to always just go back to watch the videos, and that's it's different type of videos. So show the live demo as much as you can. So for this project presentation in 2 weeks, now you should actually do the live demo. Okay, that's why I want you to use that computer, not your own computer. We don't want to see localhost 3000. We don't want to see localhost 8080. Okay, you should go to that computer, open the browser, type the URL, and then show your live project. Okay, so live project is always cool and fun to watch, but at the same time, it's also very risky. So you really want to make sure your project is okay. There could be bugs, that's totally fine, but make sure that you don't demo it. All right, so I'll talk a little bit more about what to prepare for the live demo, but after the problem, you should actually guide into your live demo. Okay, and after the demo, you can then come back to the slides and then talk about some of the very technical things you had, some of the special things you may want to share. I got this AI model that works really well. I have this new framework that really makes my software scalable. So something very cool, special you want to mention, I think that's worth to show. Okay, so that's how you run the demo part. Talk about the solution. Okay, so problem and solution is the most important part of the presentation. After these 2 bullets, you should start to talk about business. All right. So we're not a business major. We don't have to talk too much or using too much professional stuff. I don't know how much professional stuff they need in business, but here I will try to focus on 2 topics. Okay, number 1, what is your business model? Okay, in other words, how do you want to make money? Or think about this as a startup project. All right, you have to run it, you have to grow it, and then you need to maintain it. All of those takes time and efforts, and there's a cost. If your project can't make money, it's very hard to keep it going. Obviously, investors are not going to put more money on it if you can't prove that this is going to be something that generates revenue. Okay. First of all, you do not want to tell us that, oh, this is my volunteer project, this is my side project, I do not want to make money, I haven't thought about how to make money. That's a very, very bad answer. Okay, very bad answer. It only means that this project is useless, because if your project does solve a problem, there definitely is a way that you can use to generate revenue. Whether you want to go that path or not, that's your choice. But when you talk about this project, you need to clearly tell people what's the potential. And you do not want to say nonprofit and of those. It doesn't work because nonprofits still need money. Okay, so I'll put that in the front, and then you need to say and describe a very reasonable business model for your project. For software project, web services, you can think about there are only a limited number of ways to make money: selling ads, selling data, doing subscriptions, charging commissions, and that's pretty much the majority of ways to make money, right? So there are not a lot of choices. Okay, so you need to basically think about which one works best for your project. Okay, and then you should try to justify it, because for the same project, it's not always going to work. It really depends on the type of project, depending on the users, depending on the market, and all of these things. We do not expect you to tell us some correct answer. There's really no correct answer. And this is actually, in fact, a very difficult question to answer. You never know the answer until you try it. until you see if it works or not. Okay, so I'll give you one example. About 10 years ago, I was in Vanderbilt working on that startup project. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. And then at one point we were talking about this idea. I don't know how many of you heard about this site called Eat With. It's not a very popular site. I think the site is still there, but they started very early. I don't think it's a very successful startup, but they started back in 2013, and then they were trying to do this Airbnb idea for eating. Okay, instead of renting a room in somebody else's place, you actually can go to somewhere else's place to eat. So they will cook for you. Especially if you're traveling, you go to a different place, you wanna meet local people and then try the local food and the homemade food, right? That's what they're trying to promote. I don't know how you guys think about this idea. I honestly don't think it's a very good idea. I would never go to a stranger place to eat. It doesn't seem to be interesting at all. But anyway, that's what they do at that time. Yeah, well, but okay, if you think about Airbnb, you go to sleep there. I mean, that's even more unsafe, but that idea actually works. So anyway, but I don't think this one grows as well as Airbnb. But we were actually very interested in one thing, because I don't think going to there to eat is interesting, but we do know there's people who can make really good homemade food. And there are people who are willing to buy those, and it's already happening. So when I was in Nashville, that was 10 years ago. Here in Southern California, you can get all different kind of food from any countries, any cultures. You can get a really good quality of food here in LA, right? So anything you want, probably even sometimes better. But I don't know how many of you have been living in other states, especially not these major cities. That's not the case, okay? You can't get those kind of quality, okay? So you only can get those in Southern California, Silicon Valley, in New York City, these places, that's it. And even you go to like Seattle, those places better, but still not many choices. Not to mention some places in the middle or south. So we were thinking, what about the homemade food? Okay, we don't have to have people come here to eat, but there's definitely a lot of people who are willing to make very good homemade food. There are people who may need it. So we were very interested in those ideas, especially for international communities. For Americans, I don't see the need to do that. Okay, so but for the foreign cultures, definitely they don't have a lot of choices. And if they can get some good one, there might be a market. So we were really talking about this idea. So basically, this will be a very typical kind of e-commerce platform that the sellers will put their food there and the buyers will go there to buy it. So that's it. So this is a very clear business model. Okay, we can charge the commission, the fees. So every transaction will take some percentage or some number of fees. That's how we can make money. But then we start to think, is that really the best model? Because there's a potential problem that if you start to charge that commission fees, and the sellers probably won't like it because they kind of cut their revenue. And also this eating thing is different from Airbnb, because Airbnb, most time you probably go there once only, right? So you've been there once and that's it. You very rare that you will come back to the same place again, right? Because you don't travel that much often. But for the food, you very likely you will keep going back to buy it. But then the problem is that if you buy it once, you know the host, you know the chef, you don't really need to go through this platform anymore. You just get a number and then just send a message to get the food. Then they can easily get around the platform. Because if you charge the commission, then they don't have the motivation to let you to do that. So that's why we realized that maybe the subscription model for the sellers is better. So they don't need to worry about we cutting the transactions, every transaction, and then the subscription keeps their listing online and visible all the time so that they can get more potential customers. So we can also get different levels. So if you are selling at this level, you pay less. And then if you do more sales, you put even more on subscription. So That's the model we came up with 10 years ago. So I use this as an example to show you that without trying that, you might have some kind of justification going on that lead you to choose one over the other model. Okay, so that's something we want you to justify. Again, you never know the correct answer unless you try it. A lot of startups, they are trying this one along the way as they do the business. So what we're looking at is something reasonable you think for the project you have. All right, so that is called a business model. Okay, so it's something not difficult. Okay, you don't have to read books, just think about the problem you're trying to solve, who are the users, how potentially they can, help you to make money. It's a very good question to think about. All right, and then once you answer that question, the next question will be based on that model. So what does it mean? How much money you can make? So then you need to think about how big the market is, how many users there are, how many of them will be willing to pay for you. Then that's how you can estimate, okay, this is a big chunk of revenue, the total number we can make eventually. Okay, so in this case, you have to estimate the market. Again, it's an estimate. Okay, you don't have to tell us the real number. There's no way to get a real number. And then you don't have to spend too much time on this one. But we do want to see, again, the way you get this number. You don't want to come here and tell us, oh, there's a $10 billion market for the package delivery industry. There are 10 billion users going on and using that all the time. So those numbers is not very interesting. Okay, so we want to see the real numbers, the reasonable numbers. Okay, so I give you an example. Back to this idea. Okay, so we were talking, okay, let's see if it's worth to do this project. And then again, we were trying to focus again, homemade food and by local people and targeting international communities. Okay. And then we said, okay, why don't we just start from Chinese food? Okay, because in Nashville, I remember there were only 3 good Chinese restaurants. Even those are not really that good. So if someone had very good homemade food, we definitely interested in trying those. So if you want to estimate the users, a very important thing to estimate is that how many hosts there are. That's the key, because if you know people selling, then nobody will come here. So you need to really determine the number of users on the host side, all the chefs. Just like a dating site, okay? I don't know if you guys know it, running a successful dating site, you got to make sure they got enough female users first. Okay, otherwise that site is not going to work. So figure that one first. So how many hosts or chefs? Okay, so this is how we did it. Okay, so we're talking about how many people there are, and then try to figure out how much percent of them will potentially become a host or make a homemade food. So we look at a lot of different data. So this is how we analyze. So we start with Chinese food. And so we want to look at how many Chinese are in the US. I think we did some Google, this is like 10 years data. 3.8 million people living in the US. All right, but obviously not everyone will do this. So we need to do some cut, okay? 50%, we just assume that maybe female will be more likely to do this one. Again, estimation, okay? Just a way for you to get some kind of reasonable number. 40%, I think we're talking about this age group here. So if you look at the US population age structure, we believe that maybe the mid-age probably will be able to do it. The younger one, they're not going to do it. The older one, it's hard to say, so maybe not. So we'll use the mid age here. 25 not a mid, but just this group. Okay, 40%. That's the maximum we have. 10% means that the people who do not work, because if they have a full-time job, I doubt they will do this, because a lot of these people in this age, they are working, right? So we look at the unemployment rate, and then we times 10%. So assume 10% of them don't work, so they have the motivation at least to do this selling. That gave us 70,000 people who could potentially become sellers and making homemade food. But not everyone will eventually to do this business, right? It's depending on the market and everything. Let's say, oh, ideally we got 10% of them actually convince them to start selling the food. That gave you 7,600 people in total sellers. Okay, not big number, but it's okay, not a small number. Okay, so then with this number, you need to think about, okay, how hard it is for you to get this many people to start selling the food. Okay, and then you can start to make estimate some of the revenue. Let's say that if they start to make $100 per day, they make sales $100 per day on average. Okay, so that means the platform you're going to generate $760,000 revenue. Okay, revenue. And then you can then start to estimate your business model. Okay, if you are going to charge a commission, for example, then on top of those, you will get $15,000 per day added revenue for your platform. Okay, so that's how you can estimate based on the business model you choose. What did that mean in terms of revenues and numbers? When you see this number, it's not a bad number, 15,000, but also it's not a huge number, right? So that sometimes give you some hints on how big this project is, whether it's reasonable to do it or not. So these are the kind of logic we're looking for. Okay, that's why I told you, don't come to tell people, oh, they're $10 billion market, there are 5 million people using it, something like that. That's not very interesting. Because we want to see what does that mean to you, and how many users you can access and then get and convert. A lot of this estimations probably doesn't make much sense, but if I tell you this step by step, you will agree with me on the logic I'm putting here, right? So again, it doesn't have to be accurate, but show people how you justify the number. This is actually more important than getting a real number. Okay, so that's how you do market size. So business model first, and then estimate the market size. Tell people what does that mean in terms of revenue for your project. One day when you start to do a real startup, that's exactly the same thing you had to figure out. Your business model, your users, and then what does that mean to the revenue. All right. So any questions? All right, so keep going. So these two important slides are for business. Okay, so 4 slides so far. Okay, problem and solution, business model, market size. Slide number 5. Okay, your team. I think we talked about this one already in the idea pitch, I remember. Now, this one, to some extent, is much more important than the first 4 slides. The reason is very simple. I told you before, if you got a very good team member, it really doesn't matter what you guys do. It doesn't matter how the market is. Like they did, if Elon Musk is trying to create another company, I'm sure the investors are going to invest. They don't even care what he's trying to do, no matter how crazy that idea is, because he already got proof he can get really complicated and challenging things to work and make money and turn that into very good businesses. So that's really the power of people. And in fact, the more you work on a project, the more you realize that eventually it's really all about the people, all about the team. It's the same idea, the same project. If you gave that to different teams, different people, they will give you different kind of results. It's all about execution. That's why these days you should never worry about sharing your ideas or talking about your idea to others. You don't want to worry about, oh, I want to have this great idea. I want to do a startup. But before I tell you, please make sure that you don't tell others, or please sign an NDA that so that I can tell you the idea. Never, ever do that. It's a very stupid thing. It's basic. You're going to piss off the people if they are really real like startup experts. Okay, they don't do that anymore. Okay, because that doesn't make any impact. Okay, you can have tons of ideas. It doesn't matter. You go ahead and do it, right? You can also share that idea to others, but can others really do that? It doesn't matter. It's all about who is going to work on that, how well they're going to execute it. So execution really determines everything, even some of the simple ideas. I had this middle school student I recently met, seventh grade, Berliner. And then he started to sell the Minecraft script on the server side. Based on my understanding, I don't think he wrote those scripts. Okay, I'm not a Minecraft server, but I mean expert, but I know it's a huge community. I think he's selling some of the script. I don't know what's the purpose. Probably make the server something more fancy, adding some features, maybe some of the mod stuff. Okay, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he didn't write those scripts. Whether it's open source or he downloads somewhere, collect somewhere, but he used WordPress to put a site and then just start to sell that. These days it's not hard for a middle school kid to put a WordPress site or using Wix to put a e-commerce site. That one is not too impressive, right? Today, the kids are pretty impressive. But what really impressed me was that he really get the site very complete. Look at all the details. They put all the promotion code, all of these details. But more importantly, he started to really get the users. He kind of joined a lot of the Discord servers and the communities, start to send a message, try to promote the product. And then he even wrote some of the robot, the Discord bot, okay, to somehow automatically do some of this kind of promotion. Something. I don't know exactly the details since I'm a little bit outdated on the Discord stuff and the Minecraft, but basically it's a very if you look at that one, really the most impressive thing I see in this is how he take actions to try different things to promote and get user and then really improving the things. It's not okay. I finally get this thing done. I put it live and nobody did it, and then that's okay. I'm only a middle school student. This is very good. He really pushed it hard, and then I will tell you that at the end of last year, he was already at the $2,000 per month revenue. Okay, every month he was making $2,000 just by selling this script. The reason I felt this project is so impressive because selling script, there's pretty much no cost, right? And not to mention that you didn't write that script. It's pretty like zero cost. In other words, I talked about the margin last week for Amazon. I told you got to make sure you got a 90% margin in order to sell Amazon to make more money. I think the script has 100% margin. You can see it that way. There is literally no cost and no delivery, no shipping. You just send code to others. It's such a great business. And then he was already making $2,000 last year. These are the real story, real number I know. Yeah, so yeah, thanks, Kia. Yeah, so that's pretty much probably what they do. Yeah, so I know this is a huge community, but what I'm trying to show here, guys, is all about execution. Because if you see people working on a project, writing code, this is nothing, special these days. Okay, more and more people know how to write code. I've been working with a lot of younger students. I know how good they are these days. Okay, but at the end, again, it's how you keep taking actions, trying things. Speaking of this idea, is nothing new. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of this site doing the same thing. And then he wasn't the author of all the script, but he was the one that really set up everything to promote and try to sell it. So anyway, team, super important. It's all about people. That's why sometimes if you see a startup, if you see one of the founders, if they had already got a successful startup experience before, for example, let's not talk about IPO. If they ever sold a business successfully, have their business acquired by another company, that's actually a very successful ending for a startup, no matter how much they sold. Okay, I can tell you, anyone who have done that before, their next startup to be successful, the chance is going to be 100 times bigger than someone who never done that before. Okay, I seen that examples. I saw this guy who worked on the digital marketing. He had this other business for construction field. But that company wasn't his. He was one of the senior VPs, so he got equities, not much probably, but that company was acquired. Not a huge amount, but it was pretty good. And then he started doing his next one. And I can see how quickly and the success of the next one is much better than the first one. And I don't know the current status, but they're doing pretty well. Okay, so that's why if you have good team member, you have to sell that. Okay, that's what I told you last time. You don't want to talk about I'm CS major, Cal Poly, I took software engineering and data structure courses. No, because everyone has it. You want to tell people something different. Okay, I interned in Amazon, I interned in Google. I'm helping my family's business. I'm already making a certain amount of money by doing my own independent work or something like that. Show people really the special experiences and successful experiences. Very important. And also that tells you when you are trying to do the startup, the teammates, it's more important than technology. Okay. Because eventually it's all about people. For software, it's all about people. All right. Okay, so the last two slides, a little bit less important. You will talk about how much money you want to raise. This is a little bit different question for you to answer because you probably don't know what do you need yet. Servers, think about designers, developers you want to hire. Just if you actually think about, take a look at the Shark Tank, okay? So they will actually talk about how much money they want to raise and then where they want to spend the money, mostly for marketing, inventory, all of those. And then based on the money you're asking, you need to tell the investor, okay, if you give me the money, how long you will get your money back. So because you already talked about the business model, then you can project how much money you will make every year. And then 1 year, 2 years, you'll get your money back when we're going to break even. Because if you take the money, that means you actually take a loan. Okay, so that's how it works. So the last two slides are not important as compared with the first one, but those first ones are definitely should be covered. Okay, so to clarify one more time, problem first, live demo to show the solution, and then talk about the business model, how you want to make money, market size, so how much money you can make, and then talk about your teams, and eventually share any kind of plan you want to raise money and how you want to break even. So that's what you should prepare for the presentation. Any questions? All right. One day, if you go to do the real accelerator program demo days, you pretty much will do the same kind of structure. All right. For the business side, it's very interesting to think about those. It's not easy sometimes, but very, very good to think through the whole project, and then you might be able to find something you didn't think before. And then for this project, I think it is a real startup, depending on how you want to push and move forward after this. So figure out those questions, definitely help. Also, in the future, any kind of project you do, you should have all the startup mindsets. Okay. You never know when you will actually work on your startup. I'm pretty sure more and more of you will actually do your own startup at one point. Okay, because I believe that's a trend. Okay, big companies, I told you that, after working for 2-3 years, it's kind of getting bored. Anywhere, same thing, no matter whether it's Google, Facebook, or any other new company, it's all the same thing. Okay, big companies are good to have, good brand, making some good money in the beginning, but in the future, you got a chance to do startup, definitely go for it. Okay, also remember what I showed you. You don't want to just stay with one full-time job. It's fun. Okay, if you seek for work-life balance, that's a good choice. But if you want to look for something different, you want to jump out of that zone and then get more of your own thing to do, the thing you can control yourself. All right, so some more tips. Okay, so for the presentation, these are something you already know. text, okay, on the slides. So this presentation, you do need the slides. But whenever you make slides, less text. I think the rule, for me, the rule is very simple. If you look at this slide I gave over the past, this one, the rule is very simple. The less, the better. If you can do a slide without a words, I think that's the best. Okay, so for example, if I go back, my favorite slide will be this. Okay, I don't know, what do you feel? I feel watching those slides is more interesting than watching some other slides like this. Okay, at least that's what I felt. Okay, so try to show these things because they show stories and they shows real stuff. People like stories and people don't want to read the formal things. Okay, so that's very easy. If you can do the slide without text, do it. Okay, all right, so the less the better. Anytime you got too much slides going on, too text going on, it's really bad. Okay, so it's a very simple rule. All right, now this is very important, guys. Everyone should pay attention. Okay, I told you you should do the live demo. And in this case, you will use the public computer to do the live demo, which is much more difficult because I don't know if you ever use that project in some other machine. That's why when you prepare for a live demo, you should have a script. For the demo part, you should know very clearly what you want to demo, what the step you want to follow, what button you want to click, and then what are the things you want to type to search and show the features. And then you do not want to be creative during the live demo, trying something you've never done before. I can guarantee there will be issues coming up. Okay, so live demo is super risky, even though it's very interesting and fun to watch. All right, so that's something very important to keep in mind. Okay, so be conservative, make sure the demo went smoothly. Wi-Fi isn't too big issue right now, but sometimes the reason I talk about this one is because if you go to outside to do the demos, you gotta be careful. One case is that if you go to this kind of conventions, trade shows, normally the Wi-Fi won't be very good because too many people. So you want to be careful on whether that's going to affect your demo. Also, for if you go to others offices, sometimes you will be on a guest Wi-Fi, so that could also be a problem. But okay, not going to be a big problem. They did, especially depends on whether your project use a lot of bandwidth or not. All right, make things really short and concise. Okay, so this is what the professional accelerator program will ask you to do. I think if you look at the YC demos, some of the professional accelerator program demo days, most of the demos are about 2 or 3 minutes, very short. Okay, these are like a professional team. They work on that for months, and they only give 2 minutes demo presentation. That's it. However, I'll show you some of the examples. That 2 minutes or 3 minutes is actually enough. Okay, so and also people getting more and more impatient. They don't want to listen to long presentations. Okay, so in our case, I think we'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes, but probably no more than 5 minutes. So you want to make sure that you really control the time and then get your project done. It's very difficult, I'll tell you. 5 minutes is super short, especially with a live demo. So you want to rehearsal it, and really have a script going on. Lastly, make sure you have a kind of backup, okay, for live demos, because that always has issues coming out. You want to make sure that you are safe. It could be a backup laptop, could be a backup video, but something you can use to show the things if the things are not working anymore. All right. So these are some of the tips I can share. Any questions? So let me get you a very good demo. I think this is one.
This is Monday.com CRM, a CRM you'll actually want to use. Capture and collect.
Okay, so this demo is very short. Okay, take a look at this one and have a kind of feeling on what the professional demo did look like.
Hi, my name is Matthias, and we are GetAccept. We are reinventing the sales proposal and e-signing workflow to help salespeople close more deals. Did you know that 60% of all sales proposals just end up in a black hole? That's when you hear nothing back from the customer, not a yes or a no. That's a lot of lost money. But we have the solution. Let me show you how it works. This is Carl, sales manager at S Hotel. He's about to send out his proposal. And to make it more personal, he attached a video to present the sales document. GetAccept then track the recipient's behavior to predict and take the next action automatically. In this case, when the proposal is viewed, we start a personalized retargeting campaign to engage the recipient. Finally, they discuss about the terms in the live chat and the deal gets signed. By using sales automation from GetAccept, our customers close 83% more deals than the industry. That's why salespeople love us. So now, let's take a look at our numbers. We are growing fast, and we have gone from 0 to 200,000 in ARR since our launch in December. That's a growth of 23% week over week. And we have generated 350 paying customers already. So actually, this is not a question of validation. It's a question about expansion. There are 20 million B2B salespeople out there, and we charge them $45 per user per month. Previously, we have built the biggest marketing automation company in Scandinavia, so we know how to execute. Let's recap. We are growing really fast, and we are a team of successful entrepreneurs. And I think you all get it now. We help our customers to make more money, we make money, and you could make money. So come and talk to us. We are GetAccept, and we are changing the proposal and e-signing workflow. Thank you.
Okay, so that's 2.5 minutes, okay? Very effective. A lot of information if you actually listen. And it's very engaging and you don't feel very bored. That's what I mean by short and concise. But it's not easy. Obviously, they rehearsal this kind of presentation. They probably have to do like hundreds of iterations to change it. So we don't expect you to get this level, but at least have some kind of preparation, rehearsal. Make sure it's something very professional. All right. So that's kind of what I want to share today. Okay, so any other questions, comments?